Hello, everybody, and welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name is Suj.
And my name is James.
Correspondent week rolls on, James, with episode 6. Now, James, you don't drive. A lot of people may not know that, but if you came out of the last episode, which was White Hart Lane, you go up the A10, anti-clockwise around the M25, where do you arrive?
I don't know, mate, because what I'd do is I'd go to White Hart Lane and I'd get a tube and I'd end up down probably Euston, and then I'd get a train to Watford Junction, and then I would walk to the place that Stephen would call the Vic. Please let me introduce you to Stephen Toumi, our Watford correspondent. How are you, Stephen?
James, Serge, I'm doing well. Yourself?
Yeah, very good. Thank you, mate. Welcome back to the Premier League. How do you feel about being back?
Oh, it feels great. It always feels great. Just something about being down lower leagues of English football is not really where you want to be. So I'm excited that we're back and hopefully have an opportunity to catch them on the tube this year.
Yeah, you missed a lot of the football last year, didn't you? It's obviously because you live out in America, it's much more difficult for you to access.
You know, I found it, but it was so expensive. I think they wanted over $200 to watch every game or have access to every game. And I read the stream wasn't good. So I decided, you know what, I'm just going to pass this year and read the papers, see how it goes.
No, everyone boycotts the newspapers in this country now, Steve, mate. They're all terrible.
They are.
There are some interesting options at Watford. One of the things I want to highlight, something I've said on previous pods with you, Suj, is the first 7 fixtures. On my fixture ticker, I have Watford come out as the best fixtures in the first 7. And I saw Mark and Az on their first Black Box stream had the same. So it's not just me with wild fixture ticker. Watford have a very good start, primarily because of fixtures 4 to 6. Watford, Norwich, Newcastle's a nice little run. But Villa, Brighton, Tottenham, Leeds in game week 7. There's none of the big 4 plus Leicester for quite some time. In fact, I don't think you face any of the big 4, Steve, until Manchester United at home in game week 12.
Liverpool, 8.
Yeah, forget about them. Yeah, Liverpool in game week 8. Then Manchester United in game week 12.
But then United in 12. So, I mean, just 2 in the first 12 is a decent.
Yeah. Well spotted, Suj. So it's a good start, Stephen. You must be confident about having a decent start.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of a couple of years back when we started 4-0. I mean, you know, we got that one big come from behind win against Spurs, and you know, 4-0, we're riding things high, and you know, then we got to October and the wheels fell off. So expectations, even with a great starting 6, starting 8, got to keep the expectations dialed back. You know, if we can at least take points from all of them, I think we're doing well. But you know, we got to get out there. We've got some question marks on the squad with the manager, so we'll have to see how it all plays out.
I remember that start a few years ago. I think it was under Marco Silva, that start? No, I don't think that was under Javi Gracia. Javi Gracia.
He was gone later.
And we went to the international break, and Watford won 4 out of 4, and everyone's are they the new Leicester? like there's ever going to be another new Leicester?
You're saying there's question marks there, Stephen, but then also as many pundits and people that we've spoken to think that Watford, of the promoted teams, have the best chance of staying up compared to the other 2. And a lot of people are talking about, because of your defensive record, that's what's possibly going to leave you in the best stead to stay up out of the Norwich and Brentfords.
Yeah, I agree that they do have the best chance, I guess. They did set a record in the championship last year with the least amount of goals, with 30, I believe it was, which was pretty amazing. I mean, you know,
30 all season's a great record.
Foster goes down. I forgot how many games in, and Daniel Bachmann comes in and basically picks up where he left off. I mean, they were a great pair. They did a lot. And there was, again, the team was built from the back moving forward, but you know, as we know, we come into the Premier League, and you know, the class of players, the class of talent, much higher than what we see in the EFL. So, you know, I know Cisco is concentrating on, you know, building that defense, and the defense looks good. We can talk about the keeper situation here shortly, but you know, they do have experience back there, which is great, because I think that defensive experience would definitely show through in the Premier League. But I mean, that's how Watford plays when we get back up to the Premier League. You know, try to hold the teams to, a goal or maybe 2 goals and, hit them on the counterattack. So I'm just hoping that, we get good defensive production this year from, our back four, most likely, and whoever's between the sticks.
Let's talk about that first then, Stephen. Who will be in goal, in your opinion?
Unless they sell Bachmann for $30 million to Arsenal.
Is that what you've heard?
Oh, that was the latest rumor. I guess Watford turned down a £15 million offer from Arsenal, and it sounds like Arsenal's trying to counter with $30 million. I don't know. Again, it's rumor, speculation, but I think Bachmann's going to start. I've read it. He didn't look all that sharp in this 4-1 loss we had behind closed doors to Arsenal, but I'm all for Foster in there just because of the experience. I know he's 38, but I mean, a 38-year-old keeper, different than a 38-year-old defender. So I'm more than happy to see Foster in there, but I think it is going to be Bachmann between the sticks. So for the the FPL portion, that's not too bad. You get Foster, you get Bachmann at 9-5 total. So I mean, or 8-5, I think. Yeah, 4-5 and 4. So Bachmann will be back there, but he's untested in the Premier League. So we'll have to see how that goes.
I think it's the best combo. If you want a 4.0 and a 4.5, it looks the best one as far as I can see. And I think that because a little bit like what you're saying, Stephen, if Foster has to come in, unlike a few others who don't have the experience, he obviously does, right? He's played at this level for 15, 20 years or so he knows his way around. I think Bachmann will be first choice as long as he's with the club. There has been, I'd not heard the Arsenal rumour, although we know that they're looking actively for a goalkeeper. I'd heard a few overseas clubs might be looking at Daniel Bachmann, obviously partly because he started for Austria and the Euros has got people's attention and that.
I don't think he's going to be around long, though. I mean, we've got Pontus Dahlberg playing on loan in Sweden. I mean, he is the future. So, Bachmann could be here a year, 2 years, and be gone.
Yeah, there's every chance he could go, which is a little bit scary. I don't think he will.
No,
personally, like if people are looking to buy, but I think you have to be aware there is a possibility that there are some clubs inquiring after Daniel Bachmann at the moment.
Shit, I'm all for taking the 30 million. Take the 30 million. And
of course, should he go, you have got a 4.0 starting goalkeeper. I agree, Stephen. If someone comes up with 30 million, I think, hey, you take the money, mate. Absolutely. Especially when you look at people like Emi Martinez going last summer for 20 million or so. Yeah. He's still relatively unproven. I mean, he was second choice for you in the first half of last season, Bachmann. So if there's a big money come in, I think the club will probably take the money. Foster's in 25% of teams at the moment.
Yeah.
Including mine.
It's not surprising. I mean, at 4 million. I mean, again, he's got the experience and the, he can do it. I think at some point, I think if you see Watford come out flat, we give up a ton of goals early, I have no doubt Sisko's going to make a change defensively.
Yeah, so. One of the main reasons you obviously improved defensively as well was the introduction of Bachmann was one reason, but also the introduction of Sierralta, who'd been bought last summer but hadn't got a look in the first half of last season. Yep. From when he came into the team, things shored up quite a bit. He's definitely first choice by the looks of it at centre-back.
Oh, yeah.
You could still buy in that area. One of the issues with him, though, Stephen, is he likes a yellow card, doesn't he?
He does. He does. Can't be any worse than Jose Olivas, though, so I'll be more than happy to take Sierralta in the center.
What do you think of those defensive players as assets? Because, I mean, Navarro and Pollock are 4.0, but probably not likely to get a look. Everyone else is 4.5. Do any of them stand out at all to you?
No, not really. I mean, if I were to take a defender, it'd be Femenia on the right.
Yeah, we would think probably first choice over.
Yeah, but I mean, even Femenia, I think he's only had like 2 assists over 2 years back in the Premier League. So I mean, he's not going to get you a lot of points. He may slide in with a bonus point or two, but none of the defenders really excite me. The only
any of them appeal to you, Suj, defensively?
No.
Come on, not even your boy Ngakia?
No, not even a nostalgic, West Ham old boy pick, not at all. But it's funny because if we're talking about the defensive record for last season, then at 4.5, surely one of them might be a good 4th or 5th defender option. And the other thing with the defense, if the defense is good, is I'm seeing a lot of people thinking about Son as captaincy in game week 3. But which is it? Either Watford are good defensively, or we're targeting them for captaincy in game week 3. Perhaps that captaincy in game week 3 for Son or a Spurs asset is because the other options are probably not as good as they might be. But yeah, it's a bit of a kind of conundrum where I think Watford probably will be all right defensively, but I'm still not picking any of their assets. And if I own Son, I probably will captain it in game week 3 as well.
Well, it might be default for a lot of people, like it might be for myself as well. But yeah, I'm very conscious of how good that defensive record is. When the prices were released, the first draft I did, which I kind of left for weeks on end, had Sierralta in it because of that really strong defensive record. I've been quite put off by the amount of yellow cards. He's definitely going to be a threat from set pieces. He's a big old boy. But I think, yeah, you'd probably Feminina, even though he's a little threat from Ngaki. I think the left-back position is a little bit more difficult to call. Adam Messina actually picked up a knock in a friendly last week. Should be okay, though.
Yeah, he played against Arsenal last week, I think half of football. But, yeah, he should be fine for the start of the season.
And Nostalgist might be a little bit excited by Danny Rose, but I understand he's working on his own kind of fitness schedule. And I think
he's looks only like he ate Troy Deeney.
Poor fella weren't allowed to play for a year, Stephen. Danny would be great experience for you. I saw the interview Ben Foster did with him, and it actually, from my perspective, it's really nice to see Danny Rose looking happy somewhere again. I'm really pleased. And I think he'll offer a nice backup, but I think Messina will still be first choice, actually.
Yeah, I mean, unless Rose comes out and really turns things on and get gains that fitness. But yeah, Messina, Rose, I think they'll push each other, so that'll be good competition.
Yeah, it was a problem area for your left backs. At least you've got the competition there. And I understand you've got a left back, I think it's called Morris, on trial from Southampton at the moment. It's been, well, I say on from Southampton. He's been released by Southampton. He apparently played quite well when he came on for Messina against West Brom, so he might come in as a third option as well.
We'll have to see. Yeah, I haven't really spent too much time on the youngsters, but yeah, I just read something on that. So yeah, we'll see. He probably won't get much time though, if any.
From what I hear, Truce de Kong will probably be the partner for Sierralta. Is that what you're hearing as well, Stephen?
Yeah, it'll be those two in the center, and I mean they played very well last year together, and especially when Sierralta came in, and yeah, we'll have to see how he does, in the Premier League. But yeah, I mean those are two big central defenders. He likes to get forward as well, so. We'll have to see if we can capitalize, especially on the set pieces. I mean, with both those two in the center, we've seen it in the past, with the Cathcart or, some of the other big central defenders we have. But yeah, I like our pairing in the center.
There's depth. You can look at that and go, right, so Ngakia in for Feminina as backup, Rose in for Messina, and you've got Cathcart and Kabasele at centre back. I'm pretty sure, Stephen, Cathcart and Kabasele were the two that played together when you won those first 4 games a couple of years ago. I feel sure they were. So at least they've got the experience of the league. I think the back 4 probably picks itself most of the time.
Yeah.
Midfield's harder to call. So I think...
James, you mentioned the word depth there. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't look heavily at Watford assets in FPL, but it wouldn't surprise me if Watford have more players listed in FPL than any other club. You're talking about depth. I mean, that list, I have to scroll 3 times to get down to the bottom, whereas some clubs...
They're one of the few clubs where you have to press page 2.
Yeah.
Go through the list of players. I mean, to give you some... We'll come on to forwards in a little bit, but obviously Tottenham currently, at time of recording, have just Harry Kane. Manchester City, at time of recording, have just Gabriel Jesus. Watford have 10 forwards listed.
It's incredible.
So that's part why. We're expecting a 4-3-3, I understand, from Cisco. Is that what you're hearing as well, Steve?
Yeah, that's what we're hoping. It looked more like a 4-5-1 against Arsenal, which almost tells me he sort of, gave up on the attack and, sat more people back in a defensive posture. But 4-3-3 is, or 4-3-3 is how they finished up last year. But I think some of that is going to be dependent on, what happens in the midfield. I mean, I could see a 4-4-2 as well if, we got a couple of forwards who start playing very well together. But, we still have questions with Will Hughes and Nathaniel Chaloa. Not that we don't have backups or people who can slide in for them this season, but that's a lot of experience to lose right there in the midfield, especially Hughes. I mean, he's only 26. He doesn't want to sign, so we'll have to see where that leaves that midfield.
Yeah, so Hughes, and possibly Nathaniel Chalobah as well are being kind of jettisoned at the moment because they're not signing a new contract. It definitely looks like Will Hughes will will leave. And Nathaniel Chalobah may do as well. There are some interesting. I mean, the midfield three is quite difficult to know what it's going to be at the moment. I think it's fair to say Imran Louza will be one of them.
Agreed.
Who's been brought in is 5.5. I understand he's a bit of a set piece specialist, and he might even be the penalty taker as well.
Ooh, I don't know if I go that far.
He's got a really good record. I'm sure I think he was in France last year.
Yeah,
I'm sure wherever he was, he took a few penalties last year. So if you want a name out there that no one's talking about at the moment who's in 0.1% of teams, there's your 5.5 option. I think he'll definitely start, but possibly one to look out for because he's going to be on all the set pieces by the looks of it. I don't know about the penalties, but definitely the set pieces.
Yeah, he was one of two who looked like they may slot in if both Chalobah and Hughes depart. I know very little about him. I've done some reading on him, but I don't know if he's going to be that central midfielder that can, I guess, be that provider for the forwards like Hughes was when he was played in the center. Last year it worked out very well when Cisco came in and he moved Hughes back to that his natural position, and things just clicked, and we were able to have a decent offensive season as well as a defensive season. But usually I would have said our defense, our midfield is solid, but right now I think there's a lot of question marks. I don't think anything is set with the exception of Ismaila Sarr on the right, and we play a 4-3-3, then he's up front. But if he decides to drop back to that 4-5-1 or even a 4-4-2, I mean, you'll see, success or not success. Sorry, Sarr is the only one.
Manchal got excited there for a second.
As a success.
Manchal got success.
Misspoke. Yes, I don't want to bring up success. That was a failure. Sorry about that. But yeah, I mean, we have a lot of questions. I think we have a lot of questions. Cleverly, I mean, what do we do with Cleverly? I mean, he's another one that we've got in the midfield that, he should spend some time on the pitch. Peter Atibo on loan from Stoke is another one that I know the Pozos are really excited to have because they were chasing him a couple of years back. So I think we have a lot of question marks.
I think from what I think calling the midfield three for Watford is really difficult, and none of them particularly stand out from an FPL perspective. I think Atepo, who's on loan from Stoke of 4.5, is probably going to be the sitter of the three. And it makes him a 4.5 option. But I don't think that's the one you'd be buying as your fifth midfielder because there's no real clue on it. Louza might be the one that steps out that no one would be talking about. But yeah, Ismaila Sarr is from the midfielders is the one I think we obviously want to talk about, Stephen. Interested in starting with him at 6.0? All shakes head. That's a problem for me because it's in for me at the moment.
We don't score. That has traditionally been our problem in the Premier League is we have problems scoring goals. Sarr had a great season last year. I mean, even Josh King, when we talk about him, he's had a couple of good seasons for Bournemouth. But I'm just a big gun shy on putting money on a Watford attacker. I think we need to see how they come out, how they play, if the defense can deliver as I think a lot of supporters are expecting. But no, even right now to start the season, Sarr concerns me. But this run of first 6 or 8, I could see him being in squads and starting. I mean, he undoubtedly will pick up a couple of goals. We've got a more proven goal scorer in the middle who's not Troy Deeney or Isaac Success. So we could have better chances, I'm hoping.
I think you've just poo-pooed a lot of people for Sarr there. I mean, I'm looking at it and going, I want something in there because of those fixtures, something I can leave in there for 6-7 weeks and go, do you know what? Can I punt it? 6 million. And I don't feel like Ismaila Sarr is a complete punt because he did well in the Championship last year. Admittedly, it's a goal in 3, but we've seen what he can do with a little bit more space in behind, a la the Liverpool game 18 months ago. Mm-hmm. And actually, at this level, you might find that he's got bit more space actually to go in behind people,
Potentially, yeah.
because you're going to have less of the ball in games. So I really like him as a punt at the start. But I'm not even sure he is a punt, because I know the quality of him. So he's not a punt. To be honest, the thing I'm most concerned about at the moment is he's being linked with other clubs.
Yeah,
like,
he has.
Like Liverpool as a possibility was the latest I heard in the week.
But he goes to Liverpool, he doesn't start. I mean, I think
I agree.
I mean, I think he's of the mind, and I haven't read anything about it, but I think he's of the thought that, he's going to stay at Watford, potentially write out the contract. And I mean, he'll easily be these days 50, 60, 70 million. And he'll be shipped off. He's not going to be around much longer.
He could have left last summer, right? And he went down, but he stayed with the club.
He did.
I'm with you, James, in that I'm looking at it thinking there's a few reasons why he's in my draft as well at the moment. I mean, his returns.
You having him? If you've got him, I'll take him out.
Yeah, go for it. He had 2 years ago, he picked up 12 attacking returns, right? And that was only in 2,000 minutes. 100 odd points in that time is no joke. Secondly, I don't want to start the season with players that are risky, and he's definitely going to play. I mean, if we talk about Tom Cantwell's talisman theory, I think Ismaila Sarr is there for Watford as the one that's going to be involved in a lot of stuff. And then the third thing is his price is at 6 million. I've got so many places. If it doesn't work out after 4 or 5 weeks, I could go to Harrison or one of the Leeds boys. I could go to one of the Spurs attackers at 6.5. West Ham have got attacking midfielders at 6.5. There's so many places that I can come off. So if I feel like it's not working, he doesn't tie me into a kind of straitjacket. So that's why I think those things tied up together. His record in the Premier League previously was decent. He's definitely going to play. And I've got exit plans as well. That's what I feel like of all the punt picks. I don't mind Sarr.
It would definitely be better for him to stay at Watford for at least
for sure.
this season, or at least till January or whatever, rather than exactly that. You don't want to see a player of that quality go and sit on the bench at Liverpool and stuff. And listen, he wouldn't. He'd get on regularly. He'll be rotated, but he's not going to be he's obviously not going to play instead of Mo Salah, is he? So it's not a great career move unless they were looking at him as a long-term replacement for Salah if they were to let him go next year, for example. I've heard Man United mention, same thing. It's not going to start. I've just bought Jadon Sancho. It doesn't make any sense. I think that's probably off the table now. I think he was a backup option they were looking at last summer, possibly. Yeah, I like it. It's a punt. I feel like starting with him will be easier than trying to buy him, which is a little bit contradictory because we are saying that you can move from player to player in that midfield area and it's quite easy. But I feel like when I get to game week 4, which would probably be the entry point for Watford if I don't start, there's other teams that I need to come off the Villa players, for example. So, I mean, you could make a case to say punt Buendia for the first 3 and look at buying Ismaila Sarr in game week 4, for example. But I don't think there's anything to hate particularly about Watford's first 3, Villa, Brighton and Tottenham. Like, they're winnable games.
No, yeah, they're all winnable. I mean, of course, the only one that sticks out to me is Spurs. We've had, unlike Man City, we've had very good success against Spurs. So, hopefully we can take what we did against them last time and come out and, play a good game against them. And
you've been a problem fixture for us the last few years. You were up many draws and a couple of defeats for us in there as well. One very scrappy late win at Wembley. Yeah, listen, I agree. Like, going back to the point of maybe captaining Son or Kane if he's still with Tottenham in game week 3. Yes, but I think it's the standout because there are not many good standout options. What do you feel about that yourself, Stephen? The idea of captaining players against Watford this year? I don't mean specifically for you, but do you feel like you're a side that should be targeted from that perspective?
Yeah, we will be, mainly because we're new again to the Premier League. I mean, we're one of the promoted teams, so yeah, we're going to. I think we'll be targeted just like Brentford and Norwich will. So fair, maybe. I do think we have a defense that's on par with at least the bottom 5, bottom 6, 7 teams. So, I say go for it.
You're concerned scoring the goals at the other end, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, it always has been and probably always will be.
I mean, let's cut through this noise then. Right, 10 forwards. So
I'm sorry. You can leave Isaac Success.
Forget
and
that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're gone. They're not.
And while we're ruling out players for Manchild, is it fair to rule out Hung Bo as well, because that's another one that he's going to want to pick as well?
Yeah, Hung Bo can be gone too.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
So, what price is he?
4.5.
Is he?
Joseph Hungbo is 4.5, mate. Yeah.
What, as a striker or midfielder?
No, he's a midfielder. He's a midfielder. We're moving to the strikers now.
Watford have got so many players, I can't even see him.
It's unbelievable, yeah. He's in the midfield. But Josh King is the one that's obviously come in that might get people interested at 5.5.
He's one of two. I'm also very high on Cucho Hernandez.
I thought you were going to say that.
If there's one player that excites me more than anybody on the team this year in the attacking portion of the pitch, it's Cucho Hernandez. He's been with us since 2017. He's been on loan in Spain, and he's finally getting his chance. But you just look at the kid, and he looks like a Sergio Aguero. Got that white hair. He's just got the build, the dark skin. But we know he's a long way from being Kun Aguero. But he has caused some of the most excitement this year, coming in and actually donning the kit finally. So and he looked excitable a couple weeks back when we played. I think it was Stevenage. But he's probably who I would look at as a punt for an attacker.
He absolutely is it. I'm really pleased you said that, because what I've been looking into, I watched some clips with your West Brom friendly and stuff. And yeah, the reaction to him was, oh, what an exciting talent he is, because he's been your player for ages.
Yes.
He was at Huesca for a couple of years, originally in the Segunda Division, then in the Primera Liga. Then he had a year on loan at Mallorca. Last year was on loan at Getafe. He's not a new signing. He's been at Watford for a long time. They've decided, right, okay, this year we're going to play this fella.
Yep.
And by the way, it's worth saying, and that goes for probably anybody I think listed here as a Watford forward. None of them are guaranteed starters. So it is absolutely a punt. It's worth saying on Cucho, his goal scoring record, the first year he had Huesca in the Segunda Division, he scored 16 times. I think he's only got about 10 goals in the Primera Liga in the last 3 years or so. So by no means prolific, but a developing player and quite an exciting player. I'd heard that Aguero comparison as well, and people will hear that and go, oh, that's interesting at 5.0. I think he probably does start the season. And I think one of the reasons for that is we think João Pedro, who a lot of people will be looking at, and when we spoke earlier in the summer, we said there was a possibility he might move from central striker to left-hand side, but he's probably going to miss the start of the season with injury. He's going to be real touch and go.
Yeah, Pedro, he was going to be the other name I just mentioned. I mean, he's young, he's 19, but he's from that Richarlison cut. I mean, he played at Fluminense. He's Brazilian. He's got the talent. I mean, he was who I was excited about this year. If Cucho didn't come in and if we didn't sign Josh King, it was basically Pedro's game as a number 10 up front. But now with King in there and Cucho most likely on the left side in that 4-3-3, I think they can sort of bring Pedro along at a bit slower pace, and everything's not going to be dependent on him. And we haven't even talked about Troy Deeney. I guarantee you Troy Deeney's going to find his way back in that 6-yard box, even if he just stands there. And he played against Arsenal, and it's like,
he missed. People looking at his numbers last year probably think, oh, he's finished. But he spent the majority of last season injured, right? So there is a real unknown in terms of who the central striker wants to be. I understand one of the reasons Josh King signed for Watford is because he was promised the opportunity to be the central striker, which appealed to him. So
if he's not starting central forward game one, then I don't know what Cisco's thinking. He's got to be. It's got to be what I said. Hernandez on the left. Who we're just talking about in the center.
King in the middle.
King in the middle, and Sarr
on the right.
And that seems the most logical, and that's what I've heard and read.
Yeah, agreed.
And then if you chuck in Loser in behind or Will Hughes in behind, you still worried about scoring goals?
Will Hughes is going to go.
I
am. Okay, so Loser in behind. You still worried about scoring goals? Because that's firepower there.
Playing Stevenage and playing Arsenal are sort of on two different levels here. We looked good against Stevenage, but we looked decent against Arsenal in the first half. I think we matched them. It was 1-1, I think, at the break, and we brought all the kids in, and boom, we ended up giving 3 goals up. So you know, I can only go off by, you know, what I see from some of the people who would watch the game. And there was, you know, some banter back and forth that they didn't look good because they were playing more of a 4-5-1 than a 4-3-3. And Cisco basically gave up the attack. That's why we lost. So, you know, you make of it what you can. But
I mean, the likes of Arsenal, I mean, your season is not going to be defined by what you do against Arsenal, Liverpool.
No, it's not.
It's going to be defined against Southampton, Palace, Newcastle, and all of these sides. And in games like that, if you can keep it tight at the back, they're generally not high-scoring games. You need to score 1 or 2 goals to win those games, but keep it tight at the back. My own club, I saw it last season where we'd let the other opposition have the ball, but just keep it tight and then hit them on the counter or nick a goal or two, and you can win a number of games. And it feels like your squad has the ability to do that.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, that's, you know, build from the back and, you know, send somebody like Sarr on a run down the right side, or
it's really difficult. You can look at all the stats from championship teams, etc., when they get promoted. But it's really difficult to understand how it's going to equate to Premier League football. We're kind of talking about Sarr and saying, look, it's got to be different for him. Teams you'd have played previously, like, listen, this guy on the right is a big problem, you know, double up on the left-hand side, that kind of thing. That's less of an issue now. You're going to have less of the ball. He's going to have less of the ball, but in an odd way, he might have more one-on-one chances than he would do in a championship game. When I say one-on-one, I mean like one-on-one against his fullback to be able to take him on or run behind. And the same goes for the defensive record. The defensive record is one of the best ever, I think, if not the best, of a team promoted from the championship. Is that affected by the fact of lack of crowds in the championship last year? It's difficult to overly weight that. And how will it affect when they come up? Because like everything I hear about Sierralta from Watford fans would suggest to me that he's going to be playing for Real Madrid in the next couple of years. But let's see how he gets on when he has to play against the likes of Ollie Watkins first and that. So really difficult to understand how that works out. And tactically, these teams, when they come up, are going to play differently. Watford are going to play differently in the Premier League to how they played in the Championship. Same applies to Norwich. Same applies to Brentford. They're going to have to make little tactical tweaks. On them forwards to close there. Parika, just to clarify, we can rule out. Dennis, who's come in from Bruges, I had a look at his record and it's not brilliant. 5 million, don't see him starting.
No, it's not. But I mean, he's coming in sort of as a problem child. Sort of like when we picked up Etienne Capoue. I mean,
I've got loads of problem childs at Tottenham. Can you take a few more, mate?
Come on, we already took one for you. So, you know, Danny Rose can fit that same profile. Coming in, he didn't play a lot. He was on the out with the manager. That's how you know, that's how things are going right now. But you know, new setting, new manager. Dennis may come in and be a viable option. He's another name that's been bannered around quite a bit up front. And, you know, it's like, okay, great. You know, as you guys said, 10 forwards. Who are going to start?
I think it's more straightforward than it looks. I mean, Ashley Fletcher's coming, you know, Suj, had a spell with yourselves at West Ham.
A spell of nothing.
Well, exactly, right?
Yeah.
Poor Mabude is a young player that had signed from Rangers. I understand he picked up a really bad injury at Stevenage.
He did.
They actually called the game off with a minute to go. They said, look, he's going to be down for ages. Might just finish the game, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So I think you're right, Stephen. I think if João Pedro's not fit for game week 1, which I think we have to say is unlikely, I think, Sarr right, Josh King centrally, probably, and Kucho might get shout on the left, and he's the real punty one. I don't think I can do it myself. Yeah. But he might fit you a 5.0 hole.
Oh, I probably won't, but I mean, he's who I would. He's my punt. I'd punt over him rather than Sarr. But I mean, not that Sarr's a big punt. I mean, he's a known quantity, right? I mean, nobody's going to be surprised at Sarr if he comes in and picks up 15 goals this season. I mean, it's not going to be too surprising. But now, if he does
that, you'll probably stay up, mate.
Thanks.
I think for a lot of people as well, we're looking at the start of the seasons about getting a squad structure that gives you a bit of flexibility. And with a lot of people,
I thought it was about keeping a manager for more than 6 games.
Well, that's for real football. I'm thinking FPL more than anything else. And people starting with Salah and Fernandes in midfield, that's a lot of budget tied up, and we don't know where Kane will go. That kind of Son,
really? We don't know where Kane's going?
Well, we don't know if he'll go. James is still 50-50 on it. I'm trying to
be honest, I was thinking
nice
we should treat FPL as like the Watford management. So if you have like 3 or 4 red arrows in a row, get someone else to manage your team.
Yeah, that's it. You're out. But if we get to, if we see some movement in players that are not like Son and Sancho, and people have tied their budget up in a few big hitters, and you need to find money, dropping the likes of Ivan Toney down to a 5 million forward is potentially a really good way to find budget. Even if he does end up sitting on your bench, at least you know he's going to play. And people are starting with Antonio or Watkins. I think Callum Wilson picked up a knock, so maybe not him so much. Picking up that 2.5 million might turn a 6 or 7 million midfielder into a Sancho. So I'm interested in Cucho now, but probably not for the start. But if it frees me up some money and gives me that cheap bench, then I'd be really interested. I'd be happily drop Toney down to a Cucho if it gave me some money to boost my midfield, which is where I'm struggling for budget more than anywhere else.
I mean, the only thing that concerns me about Cucho is he's basically had one decent season. I mean, he's got the skill. He's excited a lot of the supporters. Cisco's taken notice. Whereas somebody like Toney, I mean, at least Toney delivered last year. I mean, granted, it was down in the EFL, and we know that those stats don't usually translate to similar stats in the Premier League when you come up. But I mean, if I had to choose between those two to start with, I'm choosing Toney. I mean, a little bit, unless I haven't looked at the schedules. So, you know, if schedules were similar, I'd have to go with Toney over the unknown in Cucho. I mean,
it's only if you're saving money, right? It's literally a budget play more than a starting 11 play.
There'll be a lot of people listening, and we're talking about a 5 million forward here, who are going to go, I don't know who you're talking about. And hopefully are going to go away after this and maybe do a little bit of their own research. But for those who do then decide to punt it, and I think you definitely need João Pedro to be out again week 1 to probably punt it. But those who do, I bet I'll probably still end up sticking him on a bench, is a reality. And therefore, I'm not sure it's worth it. His goal scoring record in La Liga doesn't fill me with the belief that he's going to suddenly tear it up. He looks a brilliantly talented player from a fantasy perspective. I'm not sure that it's worth starting with.
Yeah.
Do you think, Stephen, are you likely to start with any Watford players?
Just the keepers. Those are the only 2 I have in my.
You go with both, yeah?
Yeah, Backman I'm going Foster. To. It's just one less decision I have to make over the course of the year until we come to the bye weeks. And I think at one point I did have one of the forwards in there. I don't remember why, but it wasn't her. I want to say it was. I thought it was Pedro, and then I swapped him out for somebody else. But it's only going to be the goalkeeping pair.
It's a real shame if Pedro's going to miss the game week 1. But he's touch and go. So the other thing is, like, say that with Cucho. Was he 19, João Pedro?
Yeah. Don't worry, Everton will come knocking in a couple of years. We'll sign and they can have Richarlison part 2.
maybe they'll pay over the top for him, mate.
That's Suj, Spirit Blues.
What you thinking, Sarr?
Sarr's in for me at the moment at 6 million. I've got 3 midfielders that are, Rafinha, Sarr, and Smith Rowe at 5.5. All what I'd consider cheap, 6.5, 6, 5.5. And I think Sarr for me is worth it. I'd rather one of the Spurs guys or maybe Harrison or one of the West Ham guys. But for the start, I think Sarr's worth a punt. And you said it well, James. I actually think it's easier to start with him and move away than get to him in game week 3 or 4, because I'm going to have other transfers and other problems that I want to look at. Watkins to Jimenez, and maybe I'll pick up an injury here or there. So I think I'm going to start with Sarr. I don't mind benching Sarr as well. I've got 15 starters, maybe not the reserve goalkeepers, 14 starters. So I don't really mind benching him worst case scenario for a week or 2 to fix that problem. So yeah, I think I'll start with Sarr. Yeah, the rest are a wait and see for me.
I think
with Watford assets.
The same can be applied to the goalkeepers as well, right? So, I mean, if Backman becomes this year's 4.5 go-to, the finding there to get that is quite difficult. Whereas actually, if you go with and you start with, especially what Stephen's saying, and I think you would, if you go with Backman, I think you go Foster as well. And just, right, that's what it's going to be to start with. If it turns out it's shit for them in the first 6 game weeks, there's a clear getaway after they play Newcastle at home in game week 6. And you say, do you know what? I tried this. They had the best opening 6 fixtures or so. Now I can move away. And then you find your value there with this year's Martinez or whoever's doing well. And obviously, if it's going okay, just stick with it.
Yep.
So I think Batman back onto the radar. Stephen has put me off a little bit with Ismaila Sarr. I think he's probably a 50-50 for me if he's going to be coming in or not. Foster, I think, is the standout 4.0 goalkeeper. Either way, whether you go with Batman or another one.
Yeah. The thing I'm looking at is if I went with the keepers, Batman and Foster, and then Sarr's in my squad, that's it. I'm blocked. So if Akucho or Josh King starts really banging in the goals, I've already got 3 Watford players in my squad.
Oh, so. You don't have 3 Watford players in your squad.
No, with Sarr, I'm kind of
Stephen,
done right at that point. So
he's very easily done. Backman, Foster, Sarr.
Done. So I don't want to block myself off, but I might end up in that situation.
Yeah, I don't want to start with 3 because if something suddenly emerges where, Josh King's hit great form and I can't get down to a 5.5 if he's playing through the middle and he looks like because Josh King can have that. We've seen that over the years. Then I don't want to be blocked. That's not the place I want to be. So, yeah, it's not as bad as it looks to pick from the assets from Watford because of how many there are. I think we've narrowed that down to there's a few we can really look at.
Definitely.
Yep, very true. But again, I look defensively as opposed to going offensively. But I mean, yeah, you make a good case not only for Sarr but for Josh King, and even if you want to take that wild punt on Cucho. And again, I just like the name Cucho Hernandez. Plus, he's a badass in FIFA. But anyway.
there's probably a pod title in there somewhere if he blows up big, mate. I should imagine. Where do you think you finished, Stephen?
I'll bottom half the table. I'm saying 14th.
I mean, that would be a good season. First season back in
any
the
of the
Premier
3
League.
have come up, finish 14th. Be happy with that this year.
I'll take it. As long as we stay up, we could finish 17th. I don't really care. I just don't want to go back down. Looking at what happened last year in that lower part of the table, I know we were better than some of those teams who got relegated, but that's what you get. That's the fruits of your labor when you go through four managers in one season. Is that you can't get any consistency. There's that door is always going, and I don't think it's any different this year. I think if Cisco stumbles midway through the season, the posers are going to pull the plug, and here we go again. We'll have our intern manager, and we'll go out and find somebody else again. Just hopefully they don't bring back Kike Sanchez Flores for the fourth.
Trying him back for a third time round.
I doubt it, mate. I wish you very best of luck, Stephen. I think you summed it up very well. If you defend as well as you did in the Championship, you're going to have a brilliant chance of doing well.
Right.
And if you score the goals, if Sarr can step up, one of those attacking forwards, if they can step up and get a combined sort of 25 goals between 2 of them or something, that will get you over the line. I think of the 3 that's coming up at the moment, because of the defensive record, you feel the best equipped, but we don't know how that's going to translate as yet.
No, we don't.
No. Stephen, do you want to tell our listeners who we've got a lot of new listeners since you were last in the Premier League, where they can find you on social? Talking about Watford.
Sixth goal at Sixth Goal is where I'm at on Twitter.
Yeah, indeed. And it's not just Watford. If you're a craft beer fan, it's worth a follow just for that as well.
Yeah, there's some beer over on Instagram at 30-second beer review. So beer and football, that's the life, I guess, right?
Indeed. And maybe we talked about it when you were in the Premier League last time around as well. But it will happen one day when you get over to England. We can have a beer and football in real life as well.
Get this crazy world back to normal. And I'm indeed. On a plane to London.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us in your Watford Insight. James, from just outside the M25, where are we going next in Correspondent Week?
We are heading to Merseyside to speak to our Everton correspondent, Sean Norton, about the Toffees and Rafa Benitez ahead of the new season.
So make sure wherever you are listening to the podcast, you are subscribed. We're not even halfway through Correspondent Week, and there's already been so much good content and so many
even fucking close.
Yeah, exactly. So I didn't want to remind you, James, how many more we are recording, but do make sure wherever you're listening to the podcast, you subscribe and you will get notified as soon as the next episodes go live. Other than that, just leave me to say, stay safe. Thank you again, Stephen, and ciao for now.
Thanks, Stephen. Cue music, please, man child.